Hey everyone, I'm Greg Lambert from the Geek and Review, and this week we are talking with Phillip Greer and Elizabeth Petit from Best Lawyers. But first up, here's a word from our great sponsor and partners at Legal Technology Hub.
Hi, I'm Marlene Gaybauer from the Geek and Review. I have Sarah Glassmeyer here from Legal Technology Hub. And since it's almost time for ILTACon, Sarah's going to share with us how you can use the Legal Technology Directory to prep for ILTACon.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the more exciting times of the year for legal tech, kind of leading into ILTA. Everyone's real excited to see all the new changes, see people we haven't seen for a year. So Legal Tech Hub can really help you pre-game and get ready to get the most out of it. Because while you're there, it does seem like you just live now in Nashville and you've been there your entire life, but it does go really fast. You really only have 2.5, 3 days to talk to vendors. So a couple of things I would suggest you do. One, look at the list of who is exhibiting at ILTACon. So if you go to the ILTA website, they have a legal tech directory, but guess what? That is us. We partner with ILTA. It is a mirror of our directory. You can see the little badges, and that will tell you who is all exhibiting at ILTACon. Don't just wander in there. Think ahead and think what am I looking for this year? Am I looking for a new kind of document automation tool? Am I looking for a new AI legal assistant? So you can do some filtering, make a list of see who's all going to be there, and start thinking ahead. You can kind of through the directory see, these people they don't integrate with X tool. So they're kind of off the list for us. So you can kind of do a little pre-filtering, pre-gaming and figure out who you want to talk to, who is going to make the most of your time. And then from there, if you are back on our platform, the Legal Tech Hub directory, you can, if you're logged in, you can make notes. So as you're wandering through the exhibit hall, visiting the people you want to visit, you can kind of make notes saying here's this person's email address I spoke to and I want to follow up with them, or maybe show Bob this when I get back to my office, or these people are off the list, forget about them. And so you just kind of keep track of who you've talked to, what you're thinking about things live, and it's all in one place on the Legal Tech Hub directory, not just a swag bag full of business cards and flyers. So that's how we can help you get the most out of what you're doing. But also, I do suggest just wandering around the exhibit hall, because everyone who's there does have a listing on Legal Tech Hub, so you can kind of double check in. But I think it's really good just to kind of wander, see who catches your eye, have a spontaneous conversation, because you might find a vendor that you never considered or something you weren't really thinking about ahead of time. So it is kind of a fun time just to get yourself absorbed in what's happening new in legal tech.
Yeah, serendipity is definitely part of the ILTACon experience, but this is great advice in terms of using the Legal Technology Hub directory. Because it can be overwhelming, and this will allow you to focus on the vendors and people that you definitely need to talk to before you leave. Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gaybauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert, and today we are exploring how a legacy data institution is completely re-architecting itself from the inside out for generative AI era.
I love that. We are thrilled to welcome Phillip Greer, CEO of Best Lawyers, and Elizabeth Petit, Senior Vice President of Research and Product Strategy. Phillip and Elizabeth have been leading a radical and internal and external transformation at Best Lawyers, turning the organization into a pioneer for agentic workflows, vibe coding, and generative engine optimization. Elizabeth and Phillip, welcome to the Geek and Review.
Thank you so much for having us. We're quite excited to be here today.
All right. Well, Phillip, I'm excited about this because I think a lot of us have been hearing about SEO for years, and now recently with all the AI, we're hearing more about Generative Engine Optimization, or GEO.
Mm-hmm.
So, last year you noticed that there was a massive drop in traditional web traffic due to all of these AI overviews that you see with Google and others, to where people are getting answers rather than getting links out to the websites and then going and finding the answer themselves. So you talk about your pivot away, I'm sure you still use SEO, but you're also having to implement this new generative engine optimization. And that differs a lot from the SEO that a lot of us here at law firms have kind of grown up on and realized in order for us to get high up on the Google rankings. We need to be good at that. So how does GEO differ from traditional SEO, and why is it that these third-party review or peer reviews are becoming the primary, what you call a trust signal that keeps firms from being compressed out of the AI search answers that we need to get involved in?
Yeah. So I think it's helpful just to give a little bit more context. You started that process. We've all been chasing SEO for over 2 decades, right? Google came out, and then how do we get to the top of that Google ranking so that our customers and new clients can see the work that we're doing? And we did that through so many things: backlinking efforts, keywords, thought leadership pieces, marketing partnerships with different types of organizations, et cetera, et cetera. It's been popular to say that SEO is dead. So first off, I don't think SEO is dead. It's traditional SEO is still important, and it's the foundation of really AIO. So a few years ago, Google changed their search engine, and when you started searching, all of a sudden, the middle of the funnel, or that blue links world, started to go away, and you were using that Google Gemini. So you would say, "Hey, I need to find a lawyer for an issue I'm having." And then it would give you a summary. And then what was happening was so many law firms, and actually any type of business, all of these businesses were losing 15, 20, 30% of their web traffic because the blue links aren't being clicked anymore. The users are going in, they're getting that overview, they're getting what they need, and they're kind of moving on. Well, those original AIO type of overviews were being fed from those SEO efforts. The shift that we did over the last couple of years is first make sure that our content is structured in a way that when these LLMs such as ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude are coming to our website and looking at our data in traditional SEO forms, they're actually making sure that we're tagging it and seeing it in ways that's helpful. So you think about SEO stuff you used to do. It was all about meta, descriptions, keywords, page titles, and then again, we talked about some of the backlinking techniques. Those things where you're structuring so that when the crawlers are finding your website, they can know how to get that data. Well, that's kind of amped up with AIO, and then eventually what we'll talk about with GEO, but that kind of amped up the world of the AIO. So you not only just needed the meta descriptions, you needed to have good schema bounding. You need to describe sections on the page, like to be able to have ask questions, answer questions, so that when the AI engines were gathering data, it wasn't just finding it, they can start to interpret it, because that interpretation is what becomes a little bit more important when you think of things like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. It has to take the structured data, and then it has to interpret it and create insights and say, okay, now you can start showing up in these overviews. The latest shift, and I think is the biggest shift, is this GEO, and that was your opening question.
Right.
The Generative Engine Optimization approach. And that is really making these AI systems not just get your data, but understand that they can trust your data. And so how do you trust data? It has to come from quality places, things that are not just produced by a marketing staff. So we've all gamed the SEO world. Every year, Google changed the algorithm again. What do we do? How do we get to the top? We spend more dollars. We make sure that we have more content. We flood the internet with it. We do backlink strategies, right? It's a little different. That would work for SEO, and it would work until they change the algorithm again. With GEO, you have these AI systems that have some insight and intellect in the sense of it knows whether or not the content is being produced by you, your law firm, putting more information out there, or are you reading a service like Best Lawyers that's known for producing peer review surveys and ultimately lists of lawyers? It's an annual process. It's been around for 40 years. It's got a strong standing, a big domain authority. It is a trusted source. It's third party to the industry that is actually putting out their data, right? So that type of association is actually really important. That's where GEO plays a role. So we think about our customers and clients who are part of Best Lawyers, who make those rankings. They get a leg up immediately by making it onto our list, because they're getting a signal, an AI signal in the industry for these LLMs to say, okay, if they're on Best Lawyers and they're ranked in corporate law, then their value has a higher weight. And there's other types of services that you should be paying more attention to, and they just want to make sure they're credible, And so that's why you think about, what is your plan going forward? I think for law firms, you should continue to think SEO is important, but it's not the only thing. And that's really the takeaway. SEO is important. It's not the only thing. Structuring our data is important. And let's make sure that we're also thinking deeper about the schema so that we can have questions asked and answered. And then how are we putting our data in? How are we associating? What are we actually saying? Go see us on, go connect with. What type of services and what's their credibility level? That's really what's creating the big buzzword for the last year has been the AI signals. And all those together create a really strong AI signal for your law firm.
Well, one of the things that I've been hearing from marketing folks is much more long form articles, client alerts, more showing your expertise in an area. Are you also seeing the generative AI or the AIEO and this sounds like a song,
Yeah.
or the GEO relying upon instead of just straight out structure how things are presented, but rather actually deeper content as well? Are you seeing that?
So first off, I refer to this as the EIEIO
Yeah,
because
there you go.
it is 100%
The old McDonald's version.
the old McDonald's version. For a new world. Yeah. So I think the goal is not just to have longer content, but it's authentic content that speaks to your messaging. So you can create a lot of long form content with AI, but the problem if it's not authentic to your brand and your expertise, you're going to lose out a lot of credibility. So thinking about what is it that makes your lawyer special? What makes them stand out? How can you speak on it? And how do you keep that authentic? And sometimes it's not directly in the world of law for the authenticity to stand out. So figuring out what your niche is there and then really driving it home. That is what is going to create unique content that gives you that authority and will stand out amongst these GEO initiatives because they can just say, oh, this is not a white labeled another version of the same type of content that continues to be posted online. It's something unique. And if you have a series of this type of content, like it really can create that narrative of, okay, this is the type of lawyer, this is the type of firm, this is the type of credibility, this is the type of messaging that you can expect. And stand out amongst your peers. So yeah, I definitely agree with the longer form opportunities there.
So Elizabeth, for law firms trying to adapt to this new AI search landscape, creating unique machine readable content is really a difficult hurdle. Best Lawyers recently launched Smithy AI to help lawyers and marketers scale their profile content. How does this tool solve the duplicate content penalty while keeping human editorial control firmly in the loop?
Yeah. So, first of all, we've always viewed ourselves as partners with lawyers and law firms. So, the products that we build and deliver, we want to solve your problems. And one of the problems we know that you have is too many things to do and not enough time to do them. So, one of the things that Smithy AI was developed to address is, getting lawyers to fill out their profiles. Have either of you gotten lawyers to fill out their profiles? That's a very tall
all the
order
time.
to do.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. So the easiest thing, the old way to do this, the easiest thing to do is that most teams would copy and paste whatever. You finally got it written on your own website. You're going to go copy and paste it everywhere else on the internet. And you actually got penalized for that. So we wanted to, again, partner with law firms and develop an easier way to assist you with your workload. So what Smithy AI does is it reads our structured data and the content you've already developed on your lawyer profiles on your website, and it makes a recommendation for you. Now, everybody knows that AI is not a replacement. It is an assistant, and you should still use your human judgment. So it does say like recommended generative content. It pulls in information about the awards, things that it thinks are appropriate. You review it, and then you can publish it with the click of a button. The name for Smithy AI does come from one of our original co-founders, Gregory White Smith, who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer. And so we also wanted to name it in his honor for both founding Best Lawyers and as a writer who was a craftsman as well. So Smithy is, developed to help you with your mountain of work, both with profiles, but also there are features now to help with press releases, email announcements, social assets. So really trying to be your extra hands when you're looking at the clock, looking at your watch, looking at your calendar, and you don't have enough hours in the day.
I'm curious when it comes to that, because I know, like for example, one of the things that just got pushed out on platforms like Substack is there's kind of that AI content identifier, and so is that one of the things that you try to look for with using a tool like Smithy, was giving them something to work with, but then, not, is it just a full copy paste, or is it something that they take and then they kind of do their own smithing on it as well? How do you encourage your clients to use the tool?
Yeah, so we envision it to get you like 90% of the way. So it's not a copy and paste. It doesn't just pull exactly what you've already written. You can also hit that button a few times and say, slightly rewrite it, polish it for me. So it can iterate a little bit for you. But as with all, word smithing through AI that we all do, we all know we do this, you should never just take whatever it spits out for you and then publish that. This is where human judgment always needs to be that final set of eyes, that final check before you are comfortable publishing, to your website, our website, or anywhere that you publish content.
Yeah, and I would say also going back to your point about the long form content and where I was going with brand authenticity. So one of the great things about Smithy is, as Elizabeth is saying, we're going to go get the way you're talking about yourself on your profiles, and we're going to take the data we have on Best Lawyers, and we're going to put it through our own system to say, how do we think it should build content? So it's going to have it's going to have your unique voice with our data, but you still want to ask yourself, is this me? If not, you do have the ability to be replacing just another version of yourself. And I know with AI, it's a whole different topic where there's a lot of like, what does it mean to clone a lawyer? Well, we don't want you to clone your brand. We want you to actually play a role in helping that editing and the brand. I think back to college, the hardest thing was always to start writing the paper. The first paragraph is always the hardest. The thing about Smithy is it'll write the first 4 paragraphs for you, but you really should come in with that closer. You should really come in with that closer and do a little bit of editing on the first 4 that it produces for you.
Yeah. Phillip, I want to turn to something that you've done that I think we've seen a few CEOs do, and that was there at Best Lawyers. You kind of famously mandated that your entire team continue doing their job, but also look at becoming essentially software builders. And now you've got, and I think the last estimate was about 30% of the company is vibe coding their own apps. And Elizabeth, I think you're a prime example of this. You're a researcher, not an engineer, yet you were involved in building a real-time KPI dashboard there at Best Lawyers. So it seems like people are taking you up on your challenge, Phillip. So I want you to kind of walk us through what you built, something that you've built that takes the worst part of your job off the plate. And once that is the repetitive data wrangling is automated, how do managers, shift their focus from doing that kind of grunt work to focusing in on more of the higher creative work? Because that's something that we're insisting our lawyers do. So I'm hoping you've got the secret sauce and can help us on that.
Yeah, I'll start here, and then I want to pass it over to Elizabeth. But I'll start. So the end of last year, I've been playing with a lot of AI and product development for years now. My background's actually in engineering. I used to build a lot of the software. I built a lot of the core systems we still use here at Best Lawyers for producing our rankings and doing our survey processes. And then I've been the CEO and running it for quite some time. And when AI came on the scene, I started experimenting, like, what can we do? What can we do? And about December of last year, I had the breakthrough. Claude Opus came out, and its coding abilities were just far superior to every other AI coding that had existed before. So I had this wild thought where, what if I could build an environment that was safe, that our team could fail fast in and not worry about hurting our data, and it wouldn't actually go and be spread out to the outside world. It wouldn't be trained on outside systems. I didn't have to worry about them doing some shadow IT type environments where they're taking very sensitive data and going straight to ChatGPT and just dumping it out there. So I actually felt an obligation to create that environment. And it's an exciting time because it felt very possible. So I spent all of the holiday break in December and then all of January building out first an environment. And what I mean by that is a place where all our data can connect. So I needed to create this API layer so that all of our data, when I say our data, I mean our SQL data, our accounting data, our HubSpot, Gong, Google Analytics. I mean, any type of systems that we are accessing and using on a daily basis, I wanted it all to come to one place and then inform itself and know about it's its own data. So I created a data lake, if you will, very custom. And ultimately, I don't know, for those who are a little bit more technical on these calls, it's a deep coverage model where the data in Gong understands how it relates to our data inside of HubSpot, and that understands how it relates to our data inside of Google Analytics, and so on. So that when you're actually asking questions, it can reference each of the data sets and it knows what a firm is or a lawyer is inside of those areas. That's a very complicated way of saying I made a place where all our data came together safely, and I made sure it knew how it was associated. And then I needed to create that safe environment. So I built a system where it's called the Best Lawyers App Store, where you could go in and start vibe coding through our Claude environment. And when you vibe code, you're safely in that app store. It's using just our data sets, and you can actually build eventually what we now are using as an operating layer for most of our business. So I did this. I put all this together. I got it in a very prototype form, and I met with the team at the end of January, and I said, all right, I got an idea. Everyone's going to become a vibe coder. Every department's going to be a builder. Elizabeth's going to be a builder. Nancy's going to be a builder. I went full Oprah Winfrey on you're gonna. And they were all on board. I was like, okay, no convincing needed. You're totally in for this. Elizabeth was one of the first people I actually sat down. I think I spent all of 30 minutes with you, Elizabeth. It was a very short session. I got you set up in the environment. I kind of gave you the tools, told you how the data works and how to connect it. And I said, just go and dream and build. And Elizabeth, I'd love to hear your take on, that's my more technical explanation of what happened. I'd love to hear what your side was.
Yeah, so I knew Phil had been working on this passion project. Phil's always got multiple passion projects going. So I knew he'd been working on this, and then he made a statement, and he's like, I'm going to ask you guys to come join me in this. And then he did that ping, and he's like, no, I mean it. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm here, I'm ready. So my personal mantra has always been, my team knows this, work smarter, not harder. And that doesn't mean we don't work hard. I love to work hard, but it means work more efficiently. If there's a better way to solve your problem, do it the more productive way. Don't just do something the same way over and over again because you've always done it that way. So what vibe coding unlocked for me was this new ability to work smarter and not harder, and take some of the, repetitive, mundane parts of everybody's job and make them more fun, make them more creative, automate them, whether it's through KPI reporting that eats up time every day, or taking some of these, very important projects or problems we want to solve that sit on that shelf that have value, but just never have the time to take off the shelf. And say, okay, now that I have optimized some of this basic operational work, I'm not spending all day, 2 days of the week pulling together my KPI reports. Let's take a bigger, more meaty project off the shelf and let's go start working on that.
Yeah.
So,
It's been exciting watching how everybody came to the table to build. Elizabeth built research dashboards to monitor the process for best lawyers as the nominations were coming in and voting was happening. Nancy, our head of content, developed expense paid tracking systems for all of our budgets that were going out for paid media, as well as her marketing team developed this marketing dashboard that pulled in our Google Analytics and gave full funnel conversion visibility. I mean, we went from, like a lot of companies, working heavily in Excel and Power BI or Tableau. We rarely, we stopped using Power BI, don't use any Tableau. We do everything now inside of our dashboards that are developed independently by departments. And the only time we're in Excel these days is when we're exporting data sets to give to our, whether it be our business partners or if we got to send them out somewhere. But we work primarily now inside of our BL App Store environments. When you're asking for data and looking for new trends and analysis, it used to be, okay, we'll export everything out to Excel. We'll write a bunch of complicated formulas. I'm Googling how to write that complicated formula. Oh my God, why do we have to write these complicated formulas?
How do I do that VLOOKUP table
Yeah,
again?
that VLOOKUP table. Oh my, yeah. And then you always have the one person in the office who's like your Excel person, and that's what their life is all about. Just ask me about my sheets, you know? But now everyone just goes straight into their environment. The data is all there in our data layer. It's trained, it's learned, it knows itself in the deep coverage model, and you just work through our app store and ask it question, and you develop, instead of developing an Excel sheet, you develop an entire new page that is the best visual representation of your data and answers a question, and you can provide that to then, you can use that to then start making actual decisions on. So our speed to decision is pretty great. A 2-week long Excel project is now done. We have an idea in a 9:30 meeting. By 10:30, we have a new page that's been pumped out through our finance team that's explaining the answer. And then we need to make that next decision. And okay, how do we execute on this data?
The follow-up I have on that, and this is something that I've been writing on, especially since you have so much data that you're working with, and it sounds like you solve part of the problem through creating these data lakes, or this ability to feed information into the right places so that you can set up your AI to access clean information in a relatively simplistic way, rather than having to go out to 15 different places, some external, some internal. You've got it all built. So the topic that I've been writing on a lot, and I think this is going to be, I thought it was going to be 2027 fodder, but it may hit before then, is a lot of us are building these harnesses around both our data and our AI tools with the expectation of a lot of this information. You don't need to dump everything into the LLM and get an answer. You need it to be precise, and you need it to be consistently right so that the inputs and the outputs are accurate. So I know, Phillip, you designed the initial, you vibe coded the system around it. Do you have a technical team now that kind of keeps that up to date, updates, or new things that come in, or are you still able to use the talent that you have on staff that they build on top of what's already built? How do you kind of take that 9:30 and question and turn it into a 10:30 report?
Yeah, so I built all the environment for our initial app store, and my intention was always to hand off the day-to-day maintenance, because our adding more data to our data lake or data API library is going to be a constant workflow, and any company who's working with any type of data environment governance or what have you, whether it's SharePoint or an actual Azure data lake, et cetera, you're going to have somebody managing that. So once I got everything built, the initial systems, we found one person internally who had the most interest in the AI infrastructure and the future of AI and how it's used in programming. He was one of our programmers, and his name's Seth. And so I trained him for a week on the system, and he took it over, and now he is running that API library. And people, all the vibe coders, as they need more data or they need more feature abilities in the App Store, they go through Seth, and it's been a really good system because it's, my original vision was I knew what Elizabeth and I knew what our research and our finance and our content team would need to get started, but I actually didn't know what they were going to build, right? And that's the wild thing, like what they actually end up building and how they use the data. And then I'm watching some of the requests come through, and some of the actual systems are building, and I know because I designed the actual data that came together, and I would go, that's not going to work. They don't have that data. That's not going to work. They don't have that data. So I had that moment where I was like, I need to hand this off to someone. I'm the CEO of this company. I can't just keep adding to that API layer.
You want to be the head vibe coder and CEO?
Yeah, I get head vibe coder and CEO. So I got Seth involved, and now whenever they start to build any more data, he just continues to extend the actual API layer. But what is great is the actual building is still just happening from the non-builders, or they used to be non-builders. I call them all builders now. That 30% number, we're probably, as of, I just onboarded a few more people this last week. We're probably up to 40% of our company are vibe coders now. Like it's growing, because the mentality is, if you want to do this, we want to help you do it. Like, there's no reason you have to sit on the sidelines. So handed that over. And then what I realized real quickly by handing this over is that as an opportunity to build more things. So that's been kind of exciting, and we can get into it. But I built out what we call lovingly here Bestie, which is really our first type of AI support team member that uses our different models and data sets. So yeah, it's you have to have someone who's going to own it. You got to have someone who's going to make sure that they're adding to it. But that's actually the easy part. The harder part is thinking about what you want to build, because when you can build endlessly, narrowing that scope down to building things that are functionally helpful is really that next muscle you have to start learning how to train. Because
it's not just asking what can I build. It's it's what should I build, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the opening things you mentioned was about, how do you open up room and bandwidth for creativity? Well, you actually have to allow yourself to be creative. And there's a lot of people who work in an office environment that have not worked that muscle in a long time, because you make that Excel report, you put it through Power BI, you drop it out as a PDF, and then you take it to the board and you just do it again, and you give the lawyer the thing. The creativity is lacking. And now all of a sudden, all of that administrative burden is done within 9:30 the idea, 10:30 the actual result. Now, what's the creative solution that you move forward and make something functional to execute on?
So transforming a workforce as quickly as you have doesn't happen without some friction. Phillip, you've spoken about the AI vampire effect causing extreme decision fatigue. And Elizabeth, you've had to manage an existential crisis among your actual software engineers. How did you help these technical engineers transition to feeling like they're authoritative system architects rather than feeling displaced? And how are you managing that cognitive burnout? When AI can offer answers in seconds instead of in weeks.
So, first of all, the existential crisis is very understandable. These team members of ours, many of whom Phil and I have worked with for over 10 years, went to school to be experts in these fields. They are craftsmen, they are builders. This is their superpower. And then seemingly overnight, IKEA came to town, and no longer is the craftsman superpower the same. And that's hard. And I understand that. And we did understand that. We totally did that. And it helped that Phil was a developer and came from that background, so he could understand that as well. And it was always our goal, continues to be our goal, to use AI to upskill our team members as a opportunity for professional development, whether you are an engineer or another member of the business team. It is not to replace anybody's job. And so while the business team is learning a superpower they never thought they would have. They never thought that they were going to be this type of craftsman, and they're not going to be this technical craftsman. They can do some things. What it has done for our engineers is it has allowed them to also build faster, solve more complex problems, all the things that AI does. It allows for better debugging. It allows for better regression testing. It removes some of that mundane work that they were doing. So we very much went into this as we are all going to learn this together. This is new emerging technology. We don't have all the answers, and we want to figure out how this makes the most sense for you and your roles and us within our business.
Yeah, at the end of January, at the same time I was meeting with the executive team, I actually, Elizabeth pulled all of our engineers together in an in-person meeting, and we had a Q1 huddle. And I sat there and I explained to them that I've built this app store. I've got this huge data layer. All our data comes together nice and clean. It's learning off of each other. And now everyone's going to become builders. And it was a lot of disbelief, because again, craftsmen okay, I make quality code. There's no way a machine's going to do it. And so there was a lot of disbelief. So the next time, so after that, met with Elizabeth and team and taught them how to vibe code, and they started building apps. We brought everyone back together again and showed them what these non-builders were putting together and how it was pulling data from all of our systems. And then even our engineers were in the mindset of oh my God, this is actually a real thing. This is not just some fancy fad happening. Phil says everyone's going to be doing this. They're actually building financial systems. They're building research systems, marketing systems, sales systems. And it was clear that they wanted to be part of it too. And so Elizabeth actually put on, I thought it was a very intelligent thing, as we have the adoption every 2 weeks, we'd have sessions where we'd encourage the engineers in a safe space, just to show the other engineers what they've been vibe coding. Because there's also this stigma, I'm an engineer. I don't vibe code. I know how to code. But that's not what vibe coding is. Vibe coding is not a replacement for, I don't know, a good analogy. Maybe actually, here's a good analogy. I play guitar, but when someone says, oh, I play Guitar Hero, and they're just pushing those buttons on the little plastic machines, I would go, you don't play. I actually play. It's not that. It's a completely different thing. It's not analogous to Guitar Hero versus playing guitar. It is both people are coding, both people are building. It's just one person's doing it very craftsman style, line by line. The other person is effectively doing it through a learned generative system that knows how to put all the pieces together, and you get to be that creative fountainhead. So it's watching them come along the journey. It took a little while. We had to walk with them. We had to have these sessions where they can show what's possible, and the way it's aha moments after you start to realize, I just made my day a little less boring, or I just removed this redundant task that I have to do over and over. And you start to go, now what can I do? So that's been a fun thing to watch. And I'm using the word fun because everything's hindsight. In the moment, it was come on, guys, you don't understand. I promise, we're not playing Guitar Hero. This is real. We're producing real things.
I just can't imagine the eye strain from the eye rolling from your engineers when you first announced this.
Oh yeah, it was.
But I'm wondering, Phillip, how do you leverage the intelligence and the experience of your engineers is there anything that they help the people like Elizabeth better understand about structure and how it is that you want to, what the end results are and how you want to get there? How do you leverage that expertise to help the non-engineers?
So Elizabeth made the comment that our goal was not to reduce our engineering staff in this process. We wanted to support and invest more. And they ultimately have, to the point you're making, this understanding of our data. No matter how much we bring it together and add to our API and have it learning on itself, they truly understand the repository, where it comes from, how it was put there, how it's designed, the schema bounding, how you can scale it. And when you're having more and more people, what levels can you, how much can you pull on those data sets? I'll give you an example. One person was writing an analytics system as a builder, and they were just saying, give me all of our analytics in our BL App Store. We're talking about hundreds of millions of data points, and they just couldn't get their app to do that. It was crashing constantly. And so we had to have one of our architects come in and go, oh, let's walk through this. And what they built, using the word harnessing or harnesses or guardrails, they decided to change our API layer to understand that the user doesn't understand the data when they say, give me all of our analytical data, give me all of our financial data. So it's my job to create ways that I can feed it to them in an appropriate way. Because when you have access to all of this and you don't know how it's actually formed, functioned, and put together, you can create a lot of just overly inefficient, heavy systems. So what we've been doing is we've opened up the doorway and the communication to say, go talk initially to Seth. He's in charge of the App Store. And then from there, you can actually spend some time meeting with one of the engineers and asking questions about how can I make my app do something a little faster? It's getting stuck here. And they can walk you through the why and the how. Because what they're doing is they're not just in charge of where the data is coming from, they understand it. And they're actually building better ways to feed it. So we just had a big session with our engineers where we're saying, how do we feed things even faster to our API layer? So we had an architectural meeting where we're trying to understand if things are coming from SQL, and that's what are our bottlenecks, it's single server environments, how can we extend that further? Let's actually have a stopgap where it feeds into a system like Elasticsearch. I'm so sorry for all the technicality here. Let's have it feeding to a faster
I think
system.
a lot of people that listen to this have heard Elasticsearch before. So.
Yeah. So we decided to we're starting to move our API model from SQL to Elasticsearch. So the first read comes of a faster environment. And these are the new type of exciting things that our programmers get to think about. No longer are they just creating forms on intranet to feed data back to an end user in an Excel environment. Now they can go do it. Now our engineers are freed thinking, okay, if I could restructure my data and take it from a single server environment to a multi-server replica environment where I can feed it faster, like what could we actually accomplish? How can I create a harness that feeds this data in a way that has nice guardrails and they don't have to think about ruining the data, over encumbering the server. We're not going to have server crashes. And that's the exciting projects. Engineers always talk about Elizabeth made the comment, taking that hard project off the shelf. That's what the engineers want to do. They don't want to have to write one more page on intranet. They don't want to have to write one more page that tells you what your voting reports are. They will do it because that's their job. What they actually want to work on is making our server faster, building a better backend system, creating a new way to isolate our data and feed it in a multi-tenant scenario. So that's when that's their aha moments and that's their expertise is starting to be able to work on those type of systems for the first time. I mean, those are the types of things we go, okay, you get the last 2 weeks of December. This is what you get. Build whatever you want in 2 weeks. And now you have more opportunity to start thinking about that longer term pipeline because each department, they're servicing their own needs with the data.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good, and I think it's something that we all kind of face for how we transition into whatever the new version of whether you're a manager or an engineer. It seems like we're all taking on more, and I've noticed. I've not seen people go home earlier on Fridays for some reason. So I'm still waiting for it's time for me just to roll in income and be sitting on the beach the whole time. So maybe that's a 2028 goal.
I think one of the reasons for that is because you can move so much faster with AI, and specifically with vibe coding, it has unlocked all of this creativity and opportunity that it also, for those of you who've done it, is quite addictive. So once you get in there and you start building whatever you're prototyping something, you're building something you've been wanting for years, that used to be this cumbersome process of meetings, requirements, design, get in the development queue. 3 years later, you get something you asked for that you don't need anymore. You now all of a sudden can get it very quickly. Okay, that's great. But also, the feedback loop comes immediately. So instead of Friday morning, you send off your information and think, oh, I'll get something on Monday to address. It comes right back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have this cognitive fatigue concern
Yeah.
because you are engaging so rapidly that the machine will never get tired. It will never go to dinner with its family. It will never log off for the weekend. So at a certain point, you have to have the critical judgment to say, I am exhausted. You will never be exhausted, but I am, because, and Phil shared the story that he found himself at one point, being so in the go, and Phil and I are the same in that way. Like once we get on that path, we are running. And then he realized that he was not making the same little decisions that he would make, and not like big impactful things, but just things that like usually he would make a decision about.
Mm-hmm.
He had that aha moment that he was having cognitive fatigue, and you don't want AI to make those decisions for you. So that's when you have to remind yourself, AI will never say, go spend time with your kids, like go home early on a Friday.
Not unless you create an agent to remind you to remind you. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that really runs into, you mentioned earlier, the AI vampire. That's what it is. It's feeding off of you. You're feeding off of it, and you have to recognize, like, okay, I actually get to walk out in the sunlight, so I need to probably go do that.
Tear my eyes away from the screen. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I always say when somebody asks me what's the addictive game that I'm playing on my phone, and I just say it's my $200 a month Claude is like I'm on it all the time. So yeah, you're right. Elizabeth, I want to, before we start wrapping up, I know that AI, of course, isn't just affecting how we manage engineers, how we manage managers, and how we all become vibe coders. It's actually becoming a part of Best Lawyers content as well. And one of the things that you oversaw was the introduction of the artificial intelligence law as a formal recognition category in the 2026 edition. Do you mind just kind of talking about what that encompasses, how you came up with it, and what you found?
Yep. So, it is our goal to help connect clients in need of legal services, whether that's professional or personal, with the right attorney for their case. And so we always keep our eyes and ears open for developments in the legal industry to add new practice areas as they emerge over time. So cannabis law, that was one that we added a few years ago because that was really, bubbling up. And so about 3 years ago, we started to see that law firms were adding AI practice groups. And so we added this and started researching AI as its own practice area. Now, when this first started, I envisioned this would be sort of a subset of emerging tech. And we have technology law, and that this
is what the blockchain lawyers morphed into, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of like, this is sort of what I thought this would sort of evolve into. But as AI is so dynamic and evolving so quickly, the definition of an AI lawyer is quite nebulous. Are you counseling AI corporations? Are you focused on data privacy? Are you looking at, government issues? This even labor and employment. I mean, AI is really, truly touching everything. And so because of that, it started off more as truly a subset of technology, but we will have to evolve with AI in our awards as this industry evolves so rapidly to make sure that it is reflective of, how legal is addressing AI and the needs of clients.
And we didn't even get. I was going to say,
are you thinking about an AI native law firm category? That seems to be the big buzz phrase these days.
Yeah, we are actually getting ready to evaluate adding new practice areas for next year. So look for that webinar series coming up soon.
Cool.
Yeah, and whether or not we have AI law firms that we recognize, or that's currently not on the horizon. It is the question. Like, when do I have my work done by AI and AI Inc.
Yes. All right. Well, before we get to our crystal ball question and we start looking at the future, I want to ask you guys to kind of look back in the past, and I think I may know where this is going based on our conversation. Phillip and Elizabeth, what's something that's true today that wasn't necessarily true for you and Best Lawyers a year ago? What's changed in that year?
I mean, the biggest thing, it's everything we just talked about, that we have non-builders they're taking their data and they're solving their own problems. We have a decent engineering team as far as size because our company is research and tech. That is, we use a lot of tech to build rankings and recognitions in over 76 countries, right? And so we always built a lot of custom softwares, and we've always been able to do dynamic things for each department. But there was always a process. You got in line, got queued up, and then it handed off to the engineering team. And now,
Q3.
yeah, and now that's changed greatly because everybody is handling the majority of their own needs internally. We're still externally using our engineers. We're not developing any software. All software that's hitting our customers are still handled by our engineering team because that's the right way to handle it. But for all our internal needs, everyone's a builder. So that was a big change I've seen that is different now. What about you, Elizabeth?
I think the surprise that has come out of this is I've been with Best Lawyers for over 15 years now, and I did not expect this career development opportunity.
Yeah.
So I thought that I would continue to grow in leadership or other traditional career development paths. But like all of a sudden to have a entire skill set that I did not have last year, that's pretty it's pretty amazing. And I'm really grateful to have been given that opportunity.
All right, we've looked a little bit at the past, and now it's time to look in the future. If you would gaze into your crystal ball and look ahead a few years, as autonomous agents and vibe coding become standard inside both data organizations and law firms, what's the single biggest shift you see coming for the legal profession's economic model, specifically regarding the billable hour?
So I don't think the billable hour is going to disappear overnight, right? But it will shift. Like, people want to have more scrutiny to what you're like how you're backing up the value of what's coming from the work product. And there'll probably be more questions about how did you derive that actual result set. There was already the question, you hire the partner and you ask yourself, am I getting the partner's hours or am I getting the junior associate? That's already been on the table for a long time. And some clients have been wanting to know that. And they want to know, I'm paying for the partner's time. I think there's going to be a lot of questions that more clients are going to be asking is, I want you to break down the justification of, am I paying for the senior partner's time or how much am I paying for the AI's time? I don't know what that's going to look like as far as how it wants to be shown in transparency, but I can imagine that's going to be a big question.
Mhm. And how about you, Elizabeth?
I agree. I don't think that this is, legal doesn't revolutionize overnight. We've all been in this industry for a minute, but a lawyer is not going to become twice as productive with AI. They're not going to bill twice as many hours a day. That's just not possible. So, but they're expected to still bring in that same amount of revenue for the firm. And so figuring out that balance between like what is the appropriate use for AI, but still what requires that human judgment that AI will never replace. And that's ultimately what a client comes to a law firm for, not the administrative work that AI can assist with. It is the human judgment. That's where I feel like if firms can tell their story to clients successfully, they can sort of balance that out, get that efficiency that they need, but still have the confidence of their clients.
All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to end on. So, Phillip Greer and Elizabeth Petit, thank you so much for joining us and breaking down what it looks like behind the walls there. Best Lawyers. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks to all of you for listening to the Geek in Review. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Substack.
And Phillip and Elizabeth, where's the best place for listeners to learn more about you, more about Smithy AI, Best Lawyers, Bestie, all of those things?
So first off, more information, go to bestlawyers.com. Also, look us up on LinkedIn. I'm posting a lot of videos about some of the AI work that I'm doing, some of the apps we've been building. And yeah, feel free to follow us there and check out what we're doing.
And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry, and goodbye, everybody.